U.S. President Joe Biden says there are credible intelligence reports that Kabul Airport could be the target of another attack by Islamist terrorists. The warning follows a drone strike by the U.S., which killed 2 members of ISK, the group behind last week's suicide bombing outside the airport. Thursday's attack killed more than 100 people and left dozens more wounded.
In a Kabul hospital, the Afghan survivors of the terror attack that killed scores of people at Kabul Airport earlier this week. As the injured lie recovering, the U.S. military carried out a drone strike on ISK in retaliation for the terror attack.
I can confirm, as more information has come in, that 2 high-profile ISIS targets were killed and 1 was wounded. And we know of 0 civilian casualties.
The Pentagon confirmed they hit the 2 targets in the province of Nangahar in eastern Afghanistan. Afghan media claim this is the result of the U.S. drone strike. Neighbours gathered to look at the damage and record the moment the drone struck. It was 2 o'clock in the morning when the explosion happened, and when we heard it, we went out and saw the place was on fire. And then we saw that 3 people were dead. 1 was a man, 1 was a woman, and 1 was a child. For the Taliban, it is a foreign airstrike on their soil. A spokesman told news agencies that the Americans should have warned them about the drone strike first, and they said civilians were injured, contrary to what the Pentagon said. In the capital, Kabul, Afghans file into the airport through Taliban checkpoints. The Taliban have now sealed off most of the area. Gunshots and tear gas were fired near the airport, scattering the few still gathering there. As the people who secured places on the last remaining evacuation flights soar high above the capital, the US has promised to keep the airlift going around the clock until Tuesday's withdrawal deadline. But US soldiers are already leaving the airport.
And for the very latest from Kabul, we're joined now by journalist Franz Martey. Hello to you, Franz. So as we just mentioned, the U.S. is warning of a new threat against Kabul Airport set to be imminent. So what is the situation on the ground then this morning?
Such threats have been around since several days and unfortunately also led to this tragic bombing on Thursday. That said, this time President Biden gave an exact time frame of 24 to 36 hours, which would be roughly until tomorrow midday local time. Other reports suggested that the main gate, the main usual entrance to the civilian airport in the south, might be a target, but also other gates. Otherwise, there is no information available. While evacuation flights continue, the Americans begin to be very restrictive in getting people in. I know this from people that still try to get in. So it is almost like limited to U.S. citizens. Even SIV cases have trouble to get in now. There might be some exception, but yeah, it is tightening and widening down.
So, Franz, we also understand that the U.S. and the Taliban have actually been sharing intelligence to try to prevent another attack. Just how does this cooperation work?
How this exactly works is unclear. However, Pentagon officials have in a press conference said that they shared some intelligence with the Taliban meaning that they, if they had intelligence of a specific modus operandi for an attack, that they apparently shared this with the Taliban, that the Taliban checkpoints can look out for specific things. US officials have explicitly denied that this would include that they would hand over a list of specific names to the Taliban, who is allowed in and who not, but how it exactly looks remains unclear.
Well, now France and Britain have reportedly called for the creation of a UN-controlled safe zone in Kabul. Is it likely that the Taliban are going to agree to something like that?
I think this is at the moment only a very vague plan, a proposal. It's not only what the Taliban think about it, it would also be what the UN thinks about it. The UN has in the past days assessed the situation. At some point there seemed to be even discussions that the UN dramatically reduces its presence here in Afghanistan. So going from this to establishing a safe zone would be a huge jump. The Taliban themselves would probably be opposed because they say we can run the country. Also yesterday, a high-ranking Taliban official, again on national TV, said that no one has to fear anything, that they will let people with travel documents travel abroad or emigrate. So the Taliban would see this as a sign that the international community doesn't trust them, or that they want to interfere in internal affairs. So it seems such a plan would have manifold obstacles, and at the moment it seems to be just a proposal.
Journalist Franz Martey in Kabul, we appreciate your reporting. Thank you.
Time to bring in our correspondent, Carolina Chimoy, who is in Washington, D.C. for us. Carolina, how are US troops in Afghanistan preparing for the possibility of another terrorist attack?
Well, Anthony, the United States is cooperating with the Taliban, even though the White House made clear that they don't trust them, but they have a common interest, and that is leaving Afghanistan. But the attacks on Thursday show that it's difficult to prepare for a terrorist attack like that one we saw on Thursday. Even coordinating with the Taliban doesn't make it easier. The person who detonated that bomb on Thursday had apparently already been through the first check by the Taliban. The United States soldiers killed were in charge of the second checkpoint at that airport gate. And that means there was no real protection between them and the people they had to check. It was a face-to-face communication. So the question is, how can you prepare your troops or your people for such a situation? It's almost impossible. What the United States is doing is they are cooperating with the Taliban. They are showing that they will, in President Biden's words, hunt them and make them pay, referring to ISIS-K. So they are also trying to intimidate them. And in the meantime, it's a fight against the time. They're trying to evacuate as many people as possible. But President Biden also made clear today that the threats are there and that the airport in Kabul is still at extremely high risk.
Carolina, what can you tell us about that US drone strike on ISK, the group that said it was behind Thursday's attack on Kabul Airport?
Well, as we saw in that report, the Pentagon assured today that it was a carefully planned attack, that two members of ISIS-K who had been involved in the terrorist attacks on Thursday were killed. It was clear that the administration had to react in a way, Anthony. And today, President Biden reiterated that the United States will hunt the ones responsible for Thursday's attack and will make them pay. So the identities of most of those 13 U.S. soldiers who were killed have already been identified by the Pentagon, and most of them were babies or not even born in the year 2001 when the United States went into Afghanistan. I'm telling you this because these stories are sad, of course, and have also a strong political consequences everywhere, but especially here in the United States, a country that is very patriotic and that is very proud of their troops as it is here in the States.
The US's evacuation effort now, the clock is ticking. The effort in Afghanistan is supposed to end on Tuesday. What is going to be the focus in the last 2 days now of the mission?
The U.S. wants to evacuate as many people as possible in these days, and that is going to be their main interest for sure during these days. But we should also keep in mind, Anthony, that the troops will not start to leave Afghanistan just on Tuesday, on the 31st of August. Some of the soldiers are already leaving Afghanistan. Also, the U.S. assistance has slowed with about 6,800 evacuated people in the last 24 hours. Also, the biggest base of the CIA in Afghanistan, called Eagle Base, has already been destroyed in a controlled detonation by U.S. forces to ensure that any equipment or information left behind would not fall into the hands of the Taliban or ISIS-K. These facts show that the United States is not only preparing to leave, but they are already leaving Afghanistan. And this doesn't mean that they will not keep on the mission to evacuate as many people as possible until the very last minute, but the procedure is already slowing down.
DW's Carolina Chimoy in Washington. Thanks so much.